They think we're crazy. And maybe they're right. Commander Eric Grim Talon muttered under his breath as he stared at the holographic projection of the station orbiting a dim, unremarkable star. But that's why we win. The SS Iron Requiem drifted in the shadow of an asteroid, its engines in low power mode to avoid detection. The ship wasn't much to look at, an older corvette refitted for stealth and speed. But it suited the Legion. Like them, the Requiem thrived on chaos. Talon leaned back in his chair, his eyes flickering across the projected blueprints of the target station. Alien glyphs marked points of interest, annotated by the Intelligence Division. The station was a coalition effort. Zorvath engineers, Procli logistics, and Zendari defense systems. 100 different redundancies ensured its security. But as Talon always said, the more complicated a defense, the more ways to break it. All right, people, he said, addressing the team seated around the dimly lit briefing room. Let's keep this simple. We get in, disrupt their operation, and get out before they know what hit them. Questions? Yeah, piped up Corporal Jake Chester Morales. His feet were propped up on the table, and a grin played across his face. Why not just blow it up? Make a statement. Talon's smirk mirrored Morales's for a moment. Because HQ wants to recover the trade data they're holding. Blowing it up means explaining to some pencil pusher why we lost it. He jabbed a finger at the hologram. Besides, subtlety makes them paranoid. Fear does more damage than fire. And here I thought we were the fun unit, Morales said, feigning disappointment. Lieutenant Andy Crash Marlowe snorted. Subtlety? Us? Let's not oversell it, Grim. Talon ignored her and pointed at the map. Morales, you'll handle infiltration. Their security grid is tight, but we've identified the blind spots. Use them. Brick, I want you in position at the auxiliary generator. If Morales trips an alarm, cut their power. Sergeant Marcus Brick Arundel nodded once, his massive hands folded on the table. Marlowe, you're on extraction. Get the Requiem ready for a quick getaway. If things go south, we'll need speed. She gave a mock salute. Fast is my specialty. Good. Now remember, this isn't about taking lives. It's about taking their nerves. Make them question every shadow, every sound. If they think we're unpredictable, we've already won. Talon stood up. Gear up. We move in an hour. The station loomed larger as the Requiem crept closer. Its outer hull gleamed with a patchwork of metals, the architectural clash of species evident in its design. Lights blinked in controlled sequences, casting long shadows across its spindly docking arms. In the cramped drop bay, Talon checked his gear while Morales hummed an old Earth tune, his fingers dancing over the control panel of a small drone. What's so funny, Morales? Talon asked, not looking up. Nothing, just thinking. These coalition types love their redundancies. Cameras, guards, sensors, they got it all. Morales grinned, holding up the drone. But they never seem to account for good old human ingenuity. The drone chirped as its engines activated, its matte black body almost invisible in the dim light. Save the gloating for after the mission, Talon said. Marlowe's voice crackled over the comms. Approaching insertion point, 5 minutes. Try not to break anything vital, Morales. No promises, Morales replied, his grin widening. Talon slid his helmet into place, his HUD flickering to life with tactical readouts. Focus. Stick to the plan. The airlock hissed open, and Morales slipped inside first, his movements fluid and deliberate. Talon followed, his footsteps silent on the metal floor. The station's corridors were unnervingly pristine, the kind of cleanliness that screamed overcompensation. Eyes up, Talon said over the comms. Already on it, Morales whispered back. He guided the drone ahead, its camera feed displaying on his wrist console. Brick's voice came through next, low and steady. Generator room in sight. Setting up now. The team moved with the precision of a scalpel, each step calculated. Morales stopped at a junction, holding up his hand. Guard patrol, 2 o'clock, he murmured. Talon pressed against the wall, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. The drone darted upward, hovering near a ceiling vent. 2 Zorvath armed, Morales continued. Standard patrol route. They'll pass in 30 seconds. Talon nodded. Let them. We're not here to pick fights. As the guards passed, Morales whispered, Bet they've got no clue we're here, poor guys. Talon smirked. They'll figure it out soon enough. The control room was their target, a nerve center of activity with terminals displaying trade routes, supply manifests, and encrypted communications. Talon watched through the drone feed as alien operators worked in synchronized efficiency. Morales, you're up. The corporal slithered through the vent system with practiced ease, his movements eerily silent. He dropped into the room behind the operators, his stun baton flickering to life. One by one, they went down without a sound. Room's clear, Morales reported, his voice tinged with satisfaction. Talon and Brick entered next, moving quickly to secure the terminals. Brick, download that data, Talon ordered, plugging a data spike into one of the consoles. As the sergeant worked, an alarm suddenly blared through the station. Marlowe, what the hell? Talon barked over the comms. Wasn't me, she shot back. Looks like they've spotted something. Something or someone, Morales quipped. Does it matter? Talon snapped. Brick, how long? 2 minutes, Brick replied, his voice unflappable. Morales, cover the door, Talon ordered. On it, Morales said, his grin audible in his tone. Outside the station was chaos. Coalition guards scrambled to lock down key areas, their comms filled with conflicting orders. Marlowe took full advantage, her customized fighter weaving through the chaos like a ghost. Grim, extraction's gonna be dicey, she said. They've scrambled interceptors. Then make them chase you, Talon replied. With pleasure, Marlowe said, laughter in her voice. As Brick completed the download, Talon caught the sound of heavy boots echoing down the corridor. Morales, you better have a plan, Talon said. The corporal chuckled. Always do. A small explosive device rolled into the hallway, releasing a dense cloud of smoke and blinding light. Time to go, Morales called, already moving. The team made their way back to the docking point under the cover of chaos. Marlowe's ship strafed the station, its cannons sparking against defensive shields. Grim, you're cutting it close, she said. Close is what we do, Talon replied as they boarded the Requiem. The ship roared to life, its engines flaring as it broke away from the station. Behind them, the Coalition forces scrambled to respond, their disarray palpable. Mission accomplished, Talon said, his smirk returning. And they'll be looking over their shoulders for weeks, Morales added. Brick nodded. They won't forget this. Marlowe's laughter filled the comms. Who needs subtlety when you've got style? As the Requiem vanished into the void, Talon leaned back in his seat, satisfied. Let them wonder, he said. That's the real victory. The remnants of the Coalition forces were still licking their wounds when the next blow landed. Word spread quickly through the alien networks. Humanity had deployed the Laughing Legion to defend the border colony of Arcanus III. Arcanus III wasn't much to look at, a windswept rock with sparse vegetation and a single city huddled around its primary mining facility. Yet its mines churned out rare mineral critical for the production of warp cores, making it an indispensable asset. The alien faction, known as the Kivani Syndicate, had decided it was time to claim the colony for themselves. Their mistake wasn't attacking the colony. Their mistake was thinking humanity would play fair. Commander Eric Grim Talon stood on the observation deck of Arcanus III's central command hub, his arms crossed as he surveyed the Kivani fleet hovering in orbit. The ships were sleek, their metallic surfaces reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. Tactically sound, heavily armed, and frighteningly efficient. "Hell of a view," Morales said, leaning against the railing. "They've got us outgunned 10-1, Talon said. "Not bad odds." Morales laughed. "You're sick, you know that?" Talon smirked. "And yet, here you are." Behind them, Lieutenant Andy Crash Marlowe entered the room, a tablet tucked under her arm. "Supply lines are cut, orbital defenses are a joke, and their ground troops outnumber us 3-1, she grinned. "Perfect conditions for a good time." Sergeant Marcus Brigg Arundel entered last, his heavy boots clunking on the metal floor. "Recon reports Kivani ground units already deploying in the southern quadrant. They'll hit the mining facility by nightfall." Talon nodded. "Good. Let's make sure they feel welcome." The Kivani Syndicate moved their forces with precision, establishing a perimeter around the mining facility and cutting off communication and supplies. Their troops advanced cautiously, expecting heavy resistance. Instead, they found nothing but silence. Commander Jothar, the Kivani ground leader, stood at the edge of the mining facility's outer wall, his 6 eyes scanning the barren landscape. The only sound was the faint hum of the wind turbines in the distance. "Where are the humans?" one of his officers asked, his voice tinged with unease. "They're hiding," Jothar replied. "Cowards. Move the troops forward." As the first squad entered the facility, the silence was shattered by a sound that froze the blood in Jothar's veins. Laughter. Deep, resonant, and utterly human, it echoed through the facility's empty corridors. The comms channel buzzed with confusion as his soldiers reported hearing the same sound from different locations, each laugh growing louder and more maniacal. "What is this?" Jothar barked. "It's laughter, sir," one of the officers stammered. "Humans," Jothar muttered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "They think this is a game." The Kivani's initial confidence eroded quickly as their troops faced escalating psychological warfare. Their supply depots were sabotaged overnight, explosives rigged to release a harmless but terrifying burst of human laughter whenever an item was moved. Kivani soldiers awoke to find crude smiley faces painted on their armor and vehicles. "What kind of tactics are these?" Jothar demanded during a heated strategy meeting. "Distraction tactics," Talon said aloud, stepping into the room with Brick at his side. The Kivani commanders spun around, their weapons raised, but it was too late. Brick's grenade launcher fired, releasing a cloud of blinding smoke. "See you soon," Talon called through the chaos, his laughter echoing behind him. Frustrated and disoriented, the Kivani Syndicate launched a full-scale assault on the mining facility. Their troops poured into the compound, their advanced weapons tearing through walls and barriers. But the Legion was waiting. Talon led the ambush, his team striking with precision. Morales used the facility's ventilation system to navigate unseen, planting explosives that sent entire platoons scattering. Brick held the main corridor, his heavy weaponry cutting through waves of enemies with brutal efficiency. "Keep them coming," Brick growled, reloading his launcher. From above, Marlowe strafed the battlefield in her heavily modified fighter, its railgun ripping through Kivani vehicles like paper. "Got a present for you," she said over the comms, dropping a payload of EMPs that disabled the Kivani's mechanized units. Amid the chaos, Talon moved like a ghost, his sidearm dispatching enemies with cold precision. "Morales, status," he barked. "Supply lines are toast," Morales replied. "They won't last another day without reinforcements." "Good," Talon said. "Let's give them something to remember us by." Desperation set in as the Kivani Syndicate realized they were losing ground. Their once formidable army was reduced to scattered, terrified units. Jothar, now visibly shaken, paced in his command tent. "They're not soldiers," he muttered. "They're lunatics." Suddenly, the tent's fabric ripped open, and Talon stepped inside, his pistol raised. "You're not wrong," he said, a grin spreading across his face. Jothar froze, his eyes darting to his weapon on the table. "Don't," Talon warned. Outside, the sounds of battle subsided, replaced by the eerie echoes of human laughter. "What do you want?" Jothar asked, his voice trembling. "To win," Talon said simply, "and to make sure you never forget why." By the end of the week, the Kivani Syndicate had withdrawn from Arcanus III, their forces shattered and their morale destroyed. Talon stood on the observation deck, watching the last of their ships disappear into the void. "Think they'll be back?" Morales asked, leaning against the railing. "Not likely," Talon replied. "Nobody likes playing a game they can't win." Brick grunted in agreement. "And if they do come back, we'll be ready." Marlowe's laughter cackled over the comms. "That's what I love about this job. Always another idiot waiting to learn the hard way." Talon smirked. "Let them come. We've got plenty of jokes left." "You call yourselves soldiers?" The young officer's voice cracked, half with anger, half with disbelief. "This isn't war. This is manipulation, subterfuge. It's monstrous!" Commander Eric Grimm Talon didn't flinch. He stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The metallic hum of the ship's briefing room added weight to the tense silence. "Heroes don't win wars," Talon said evenly, his gaze fixed on the officer. "Monsters do." The officer recoiled as though struck. "But at what costs?" Talon smirked, his tone laced with dark humor. "Ours or theirs?" The Laughing Legion had been called to the disputed sector of Ratol 9, where the fragile alliance between humanity and the alien Kalith was unraveling. The Kalith, an insectoid species with an intricate hierarchy, had accused their human allies of hoarding resources from a shared supply depot critical to their combined war effort. The depot, located on the contested moon of Threlvarn, was a strategic linchpin, its stores essential for maintaining the front line. The tension between the two factions had reached a boiling point, with accusations flying and skirmishes breaking out along the edges of their shared territory. To complicate matters more, a rogue faction of the reptilian Drask, notorious for their opportunistic piracy, had seized the depot, claiming it for themselves. Talon studied the situation with a detached focus of a surgeon preparing for a difficult operation. He had no illusions about what was at stake. If the Alliance collapsed, humanity would be left vulnerable, and the Drask would exploit the chaos to strengthen their position in the sector. The mission wasn't about heroics. It was about control. Talon's team arrived at Threlvarn under the guise of mediators, their corvette broadcasting diplomatic credentials to both the Kalith and the humans stationed in orbit. Inside the Iron Requiem, Lieutenant Andy Crash Marlowe ran a systems diagnostic while Sergeant Marcus Brigg Arundel polished the barrel of his heavy plasma repeater. Morales lounged in the corner, flipping a coin and grinning as he watched Talon pace. "This is a powder keg," Marlowe said, glancing at the data streams on her console. "Kalith's ships are already running combat drills. They're itching to fire the first shot." Talon stopped pacing and leaned over her shoulder. "And the Drask?" "Still dug in at the depot," Marlowe replied. "They fortified the position, but their numbers are thin. It's like they're daring someone to attack." "Perfect," Talon said. Brick looked up from his weapon. "You've got a plan?" Talon's smirk returned. "We're going to make everyone think the Drask are bigger monsters than us." The Requiem docked at the Kalith flagship, a towering structure of organic curves and glowing bioluminescence. Talon, flanked by Morales and Brick, was greeted by the Caliph ambassador, an imposing figure with iridescent carapace and mandibles that clicked in agitation. "Commander Talon," the ambassador began, his voice translated into a buzzing monotone. "Your people's duplicity has endangered our alliance. We demand restitution." "And you'll have it," Talon replied smoothly. "But first, we need to address the Drask threat. They've stolen what's ours, and yours. If we don't deal with them, no one will have anything left." The ambassador hesitated, his compound eyes narrowing. "You suggest cooperation?" "I suggest leverage," Talon corrected. "We'll show them that stealing from us comes at a price." While Talon worked to sow mistrust and hesitation among the Caliph leadership, Morales infiltrated the Drask depot under the cover of darkness. The facility was a mess of hastily assembled barricades and repurposed supply crates. Drask soldiers lounged around makeshift fire pits, their guttural laughter echoing through the metallic halls. Morales moved like a shadow, planting small devices in key locations, false records implicating the Drask in selling weapons to known enemies of the Caliph, doctored audio logs of Drask leaders mocking their supposed allies, and holographic projections of staged atrocities. When he slipped back onto the Requiem, his grin was as sharp as a knife. "They'll be tearing each other apart by morning," he said. As tensions among the Drask grew, Talon turned his attention back to the humans and the Caliph, feeding each side carefully crafted intelligence. "Your enemies have no honor," Talon told the Caliph ambassador, sliding a data pad across the table. "The Drask are already undermining your position. We intercepted communications proving their duplicity." The ambassador's mandibles clicked furiously as he read the file, oblivious to the fact that Talon's team had forged every word. Meanwhile, Marlowe and Brick prepared for the next phase of the operation. The Requiem approached the depot under stealth, its cloaking systems masking its presence from Drask sensors. As they neared the facility, Marlowe piloted a small landing craft to a secure docking point, while Brick carried a payload of explosives designed to disable the depot's defenses without damaging the precious supplies inside. "We're in and out. No mess," Talon had told them before they launched. Marlowe grinned as she guided the craft into place. "No promises." Inside the depot, chaos reigned. Drask soldiers brawled over accusations of betrayal, their leadership divided by suspicion. The false evidence planted by Morales had taken root, and the cracks in their unity were widening. Brick moved through the facility with methodical precision, placing charges at key points while Marlowe worked to disable the depot's communication array. When a patrol stumbled upon them, Brick didn't hesitate. "Time to get loud," he rumbled, opening fire with his plasma repeater. The sound of battle echoed through the depot, drawing more Drask to the fight. But by the time reinforcements arrived, Marlowe and Brick were already gone, leaving behind a smoldering ruin of confusion and suspicion. The final blow came when the doctored evidence was leaked to the Caliph and human leadership. Furious, the Caliph ambassador demanded answers from the Drask, who were too embroiled in their internal collapse to respond coherently. "Typical," Talon muttered as he watched the fallout unfold from the Requiem's bridge. Marlowe leaned back in her chair, a smug grin on her face. "And they say we don't play fair." "Fair doesn't win wars," Talon said. By the time the dust settled, the Drask had been ousted from the depot, their forces scattered and their reputation in shambles. The Caliph and Human Alliance, united by a shared victory, took control of the facility without firing a shot. Talon stood on the observation deck, watching the depot grow smaller as the Requiem ascended into orbit. "In war," he said almost to himself, "the best soldier is the one who makes the enemy destroy themselves." Brick nodded. "No heroes here." "Just monsters," Morales added, his grin wide. "Monsters who win," Marlowe finished, her laughter echoing through the ship. Talon allowed himself a rare chuckle. Damn right. They stopped laughing. Admiral Zinvax whispered, his mandibles trembling as he watched the holofeed. The sight of the human fleet, small, battered, yet unyielding, loomed over the barren moon of Krovac 7. Their flagship, the Iron Requiem, had taken point, its dark hull a shadow against the stars. Behind him, his officers murmured nervously, their bioluminescent markings dimming with each passing moment. Admiral, one of them ventured, their fleet is inferior, outnumbered, outgunned. They cannot possibly think they stand a chance. Zinvax didn't answer immediately. His 6 eyes remained fixed on the screen, watching the human ships maneuver into a defensive formation. They moved with an unnerving precision, their engines glowing faintly against the void. They stopped laughing, Zinvax repeated, his voice barely audible. Now we should fear. The Laughing Legion had been sent to face the Drakari Empire, an expansive alien coalition that had declared open war on humanity. Unlike past enemies, the Drakari had overwhelming numbers, superior technology, and single-minded determination to crush all resistance. For months, their fleet had ravaged human colonies, reducing entire worlds to ash. This battle was humanity's last stand. Inside the Iron Requiem, Commander Eric Grim Talon stood before his team, his face grim and his tone measured. This isn't like the others, he began, his voice cutting through the hum of the war room. We're not here to scare them. We're not here to make them laugh or cry. We're here to end them. Lieutenant Andy Crash Marlowe leaned against the wall, her usual smirk absent. You're saying no games this time? No games, Talon confirmed. The Drakari don't scare easily. And they don't make mistakes. If we're going to win this, we need to be better than them. Smarter. Deadlier. Sergeant Marcus Brick Arundel tightened his grip on his plasma repeater, his jaw set. Understood. Corporal Jake Jester Morales opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he had nothing to say. Good, Talon said, his voice softening slightly. Because this isn't just about us. If we fail here, humanity falls. The battle began as expected, a storm of light and fire. The Drakari fleet surged forward, their ships bristling with weaponry. Beams of plasma and railgun rounds tore through space, each side trading volleys with ruthless efficiency. The Requiem weaved through the chaos, its shields flaring as enemy fire raked its hull. Marlowe piloted with an intensity that bordered on recklessness, pushing the ship to its limits. Shields at 60%, Brick reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Hold the line, Talon ordered, his eyes glued to the tactical display. The human fleet was dwarfed by the Drakari armada, yet they fought with a precision that belied their numbers. Each move was calculated, each volley aimed to maximize damage while minimizing exposure. But it wasn't enough. They're pressing on our flanks, Morales called out, his fingers dancing over his console. We can't keep up. Talon's jaw tightened. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, fall back to grid C-12. Lure them to the asteroid field. The Requiem and its escorts began a slow retreat, drawing the Drakari into a dense cluster of asteroids. The humans used the terrain to their advantage, ambushing smaller enemy ships and forcing the larger ones to maneuver carefully. For hours the battle raged, each side suffering heavy losses. On the bridge of the Drakari flagship, Admiral Zinvax watched the carnage with a mixture of frustration and unease. The humans were fighting harder than he'd anticipated, their tactics precise and their resolve unshakable. They're stalling us, he muttered.
Admiral, should we deploy the super weapon?
One of his officers asked. Zinvax hesitated. The weapon was untested, its power immense but unpredictable. It had the potential to end the battle in an instant, or destroy them all.
Prepare it,
he ordered reluctantly. On the Requiem, Talon received the report with a grim nod. They're powering up something big, Morales said, his usual bravado replaced by a rare seriousness. Then we take it out, Talon replied. Marlowe's voice crackled over the comms. We don't even know what it is. How do we stop it? By any means necessary, Talon said. As the Drakari prepared to deploy their superweapon, the Legion launched a desperate counteroffensive. Marlowe piloted the squadron of bombers on a suicide run, their payloads aimed at the flagship's weapon systems. Brick led a boarding party, his plasma repeater cutting through enemy defenses as they fought their way toward the weapons control center. Talon and Morales coordinated the fleet, using decoy ships and feints to distract the Drakari long enough for the others to complete their missions. The silence on the comms was deafening. No jokes, no laughter, only the cold, calculated efficiency of soldiers fighting for survival. The superweapon activated in a blinding flash, its energy tearing through space like a ravenous beast. Entire ships were reduced to atoms, their crews obliterated in an instant. But the Legion had planned for this. Marlowe's bombers struck at the weapon's core, their explosives triggering a chain reaction. The weapon's power spiraled out of control, consuming the Drakari flagship and half their fleet in a catastrophic explosion. The cost was staggering. Half the human fleet was lost in the chaos, their sacrifices ensuring the survival of the others. In the aftermath, the Requiem drifted among the wreckage, its hull scarred and its crew battered, but alive. Talon stood on the observation deck, staring at the ruins of the Drakari fleet. We won, Morales said quietly, standing beside him. At what cost? Marlowe asked, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Talon didn't answer immediately. He watched as the remaining human ships regrouped, their lights flickering like dying embers. Why did we stop laughing? Morales asked, breaking the silence. Talon turned to face his team, his expression unreadable. Because we're done playing, he said. His words hung in the air, a reminder of the price of victory. As the Requiem prepared to leave the battlefield, Talon allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The Drakari were defeated. Humanity was safe, for now. But the cost weighed heavily on his shoulders. Heroes don't win wars, he murmured to himself. Monsters do. As the Legion set their course for home, the galaxy would remember the Battle of Krovac 7, not as a victory of strength or numbers, but as a testament to the lengths humanity would go to survive.